The distance here. How many feet from here to here? How many feet from here to here? How many feet from here to here? And how many feet from here to here? And how many feet from here to here? That's the duration of those empires. Wow, yeah. God is giving us the duration. How long did they last? In the statue. So the one that will last least is right here. The one that lasted longest was the Romans. You see that? So if you look at it, who lasted the longest in history? The Romans. Who was next to them? The Greeks. Who was next to them? That's it. Who was after that? Babylonians. And who was the last ones and the shortest kingdom on earth? The coming one right now.
Global leaders are openly discussing the restructuring and unification of Europe. At the World Economic Forum's annual gathering, the president of the European Commission declared that a new Europe is emerging. These are not random political developments. They are prophetic indicators.
The seismic change we are going through today is an opportunity, in fact, a necessity, to build a new form of European independence. It is time to seize this opportunity and build a new independent Europe. And ladies and gentlemen, this new Europe is already emerging.
So this is a restructuring of the EU. Almost like a brand new EU. And most likely a restructuring of the United Nations altogether. Because right now they're talking about the Security Council. There's 5 members now. They're talking about increasing it to 10. Could that be the 10 toes? I don't think so. I think the 10 toes are the real 10 nations from Europe that may very well end up to be on a part of that 10-nation council in the United Nations.
We are not watching history drift. We are watching prophecy converge. Now, join the select partners Pastor Benny recently addressed as he continues this urgent message. Listen prayerfully, discern spiritually. The signs of the times are no longer distant. They are unfolding now.
This new order, I think, already has started. This new restructuring of the United Nations, I think, has begun already. Because if you look at what is already happened already, there's already a World Bank. Because she talked about a one military. You heard her. If you haven't, please rewatch the tape for yourselves. She spoke about economy, one defense. She said one defense, meaning military. That's a new nation, a new United States of Europe coming together, which we've all waited for, and we've all wondered, is it the EU? Come on, no, all this stuff. Back to Hal Lindsey's book, the late great Planet Earth. He introduced the whole thing to the body of Christ, and everybody's looking for those 10 nations to come, and then the 10 became way more than 10, and then prophecy teachers were all wondering what's going on. Well, Daniel 12 clearly states that it will be sealed until the time. So God will reveal it when it happens, not before. So a lot of the books written back in the 70s couldn't tell the full story because God said it will be sealed until the last days. So you won't know it. You can write a book, but you're off till God shows the real thing. It's going to happen when God shows it. But what do we know already is this new world order, this new restructuring is already begun, Number one with the World Bank. Number two with the World Health Organization. Number three with the World Trade Organization. Number four with the world courts. There's actually two world courts. There's the international, and plus there's also the International Monetary Fund. So there's a lot of things going on already that have begun this oneness. The United Nations already, by the way, is asking for a world constitution, a world currency. This is happening now. Go read your newspapers. They're already asking now for a world constitution, a world currency, and a world income tax. Already. Now, here's something that the United Nations is really talking about that I believe is extremely dangerous, but it's going to happen. That is a global identification number. They're already talking about it. That shows you how close we are to the coming of the Lord. And a global religion. So they're talking about restructuring the United Nations, increasing the members of the Security Council, the permanent members to 10. And I can tell you, the minute that happens, Antichrist will be here. So I don't know if Antichrist is known at this moment. I think he probably is, because we're that close. We just don't know who he is. I think he's a known individual. We're too close to that day for him not to be someone already in some position of power. But I want you to notice something very amazing, I think, and powerful. And that is in verse 43. It makes a very amazing statement that we should pay attention to. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Who is the they? Who is the they? I believe demons. Because that makes no sense if it's not demons. Whereas thou sawest iron mixed with clay, miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. So there is a demonic connection here. But they shall not cleave one to another. So they cannot cleave as natural kingdoms together, because like iron and clay don't mix together. They don't become one. And it says, and in the days of these kings who are already moved and controlled by demonic power. That's what it means, but they shall mingle. Because that verse otherwise makes no sense. So the feet are forming now, saints. The demonic activity is already happening. We are in, wow, for amazing days. In Daniel 7, we have a different vision. And that vision is quite remarkable, because this is Daniel who had a dream, and he said, I, Daniel, let's just begin reading. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove one upon the great sea, and that means the Mediterranean, which means those kingdoms will come out of that area. And I'd like you to notice the difference now between what we saw earlier in Daniel 2 and these kingdoms because they're not the same. And 4 great beasts came out from the sea, diverse one from another. So notice that these great beasts came up together, not after each other. The statue spoke of kingdoms following each other. In the interpretation of Daniel, he said, after will come, and after will come, and after will come, and then the kingdom of God will come. In this case, all 4 came up at the same time. And the first was like a lion, had eagle's wings. I believe that is the United Kingdom of England. This is the UK. Because these 4 countries, these 4 nations came out together at the same time in history in the Mediterranean area, because it says the sea, the Great Sea. The Great Sea was the name for the Mediterranean in the Old Testament. If you remember, God said to Moses that their border will be to the Great Sea. Israel's border will be to the Great Sea. The Great Sea was not the name for the Atlantic or the Pacific. They were not even mentioned in the Bible. So the sea always, especially the words Great Sea, you read your Old Testament, is always the Med. Remember when God gave the map to Joshua and before that to Moses, and he gave them the border of Israel. He said from the Jordan River to the Great Sea, the Great Sea. Not the sea, Great Sea. So whenever you read the words Great Sea, it's Mediterranean. So they came out of the Great Sea, because that was the term used in the Old Covenant, which means they came out of the Med. These are kingdoms around the Mediterranean, not beyond. And the first was a lion with eagle's wings. Now this is very interesting. It says, I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked off. Now who are the wings? The United States. Remember that the U.S. comes from that British line. Now the U.S. is no longer a part of this lion. It's a separate kingdom as an eagle. And that's about all that's mentioned about the U.S. And this lion was lifted up from the earth and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. What's the emblem today of the British Empire? A standing lion. Look it up. If you go to your maps, if you go on YouTube, if you go on Google, you'll see a red standing lion. To this day, that's the emblem of the British, the UK. And then it says in verse 5, and behold another beast, a second like to a bear. Who's there but Russia? And it raised up itself on one side. It had 3 ribs. This is an angry bear, threatening anything in its path, because it says it raised itself on one side, it had 3 ribs in the mouth and so on. And it was said to it, arise and devour much flesh. It's a very angry bear to devour much flesh. Huge teeth, warlike nature. It was told to attack and devour. And I don't know anyone but Russia that has done that. Millions, killed millions of its own people in the Second World War. Millions. Stalin killed millions. Okay. Did you know that Stalin killed 20 million of his own people? 20 million of his own people. Yes, he did. He killed 20 million of his people during the Second World War. That's in our generation, basically. So, and nobody took him to Nuremberg. You probably missed what I said. The older generation knew what I said, right? How many have no clue what I said? Nuremberg was where they tried the Nazis. Went to Nuremberg, and they were tried rightly for killing Jews and killing 50 million people. Nobody dragged Stalin into Nuremberg and tried him for 20 million. Because he was victorious in the war. He helped England and the U.S. and France and so on beat the Germans. They didn't want to challenge him. There would have been another war over that, another world war. Now, we go on to this next one, and after this, verse 6, after this I beheld and lo another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So, looks like a leopard with 4 heads, 4 wings of a fowl. But here, quite interesting, instead of seizing authority as a conqueror, it will be given authority by somebody else. It was given authority, yeah. Because it says dominion was given to it. See that line there, verse 6, the last words? Given to it. So who gave that beast dominion? NATO, maybe China, maybe someone else. And I believe it's the Arab world. That because it has to be some countries in the Mediterranean who are given authority and given power by an outside power, because it says dominion was given to it. Maybe by the Europeans, maybe others. And if you wonder why I believe it is some Arab nations, and most likely from North Africa, also North African nations, and maybe others in that part of the world. Well, you know, the leopard has always been a symbol of Greece. And Greece today has made a lot of agreements with Egypt, for example. There's a lot of treaties between Greece and Arab nations for their own security, including Israel, because they're all afraid of Turkey. So they've united against the Turks. Turkey wants to bring back the Ottoman Empire, and nobody wants them. So Greece now is leading the way to bring all those Arab nations together to oppose Turkey from forming a new Ottoman period. Thank God for that, because a lot of our people, Armenian people, including, you know, my friend here, a lot of them were killed. Most likely that this leopard with the wings of a fowl and so on is most likely a connection of Greece and 4 other nations combined, 4 Arab nations, a part of that union that will come forth together, and they're already present. And then it says, I saw in the night vision, behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible. And by the way, you also wonder why Egypt today is building the strongest military in the whole Arab world. They have more soldiers today than they've ever had, more tanks and planes than they've ever had in their history. They're spending billions with the United States on new equipment. Up-to-date stuff. And Greece too, by the way. So anyways, I could be wrong on this, but I don't think I am. Now, it says this, verse 7, this dreadful and terrible and strong exceeding beast is not all about the Antichrist, his kingdom. It devoured and brake in pieces and stabbed in other words, it destroyed those other kingdoms that came up that I just mentioned. It destroyed the UK, it destroyed Russia, it destroyed that union with Greece and some of the Arab nations, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So this is that European Union, New Europe we just heard about, and he's the head of it. So we're coming into some amazing, amazing days.